Welcome back to Bunny Trails, everyone. I'm Shauna Harrison.
And I'm Dan Pugh. We have a cold open this week because we bring you a retro episode. Snowball Effect is episode 216 and first aired on December 6th, 2023. When I think of the snowball effect, I always think of me in animated form, rolling a snowball down a hill as if to make the base of a snowman, and then it gets out of hand, and I get sucked into it, and now my cartoon self is rolling down an endless mountainside with arms and legs akimbo, sticking out of the massively growing snowpocalypse as it continues its downhill run.
Wow. Before we jump into the episode, though, we want to give a special thanks to Mary Hulsick Lopez, Pat Rowe, and all of our patrons. We could not make this show without you. And for the rest of you, it's free to join the community. We're on Patreon. That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
And JGP, thank you for your continued support.
Welcome to Bunny Trails, a whimsical adventure of idioms and other turns of phrase. I'm Shauna Harrison.
And I'm Dan Pugh. Each week, we take an idiom or other turn of phrase and try to tell the story from its entry into the English language to how it's used today. Have you ever taken an action that leads to something else, which leads to something else, and it just gets to be too much? It's like when you need a day off at work because you just need a break, but your job doesn't recognize mental wellness as a valid reason to miss work. So you tell your boss your grandma died, which is true, but it happened 6 months ago. But then your boss at work tells someone they know that they go to church with, who knew you from when you went to church there. And the next thing you know, it's in the church newsletter that your grandma died, and people keep calling to see if you need anything, but you can't tell them because you can't let it back to your boss that all you needed was a freaking break for a day, and now everything is bad. That is an example of how things can snowball.
That's a wild story. Do people do that frequently?
I don't know. I mean, like, we have so many grandmas in this. I mean, like, if you come from a blended family, you could potentially have, so many sets of grandmas, especially depending on how blended and how many times. So, yeah, it definitely, I would think you could, or my aunt died or something. But yes, as a former supervisor, I can tell you there were numerous cases where I had employees who had family members die that I would have swore that was like the 9th time that particular family member had died. And it's not even original because it's never like all the employees doing it. It's normally like one employee who has done it over and over and over again.
Gotcha.
And they're either having the worst the worst year on the face of the planet, or they just have forgotten which family member they've said is dead.
They've claimed. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the snowball effect is, quote, a situation in which something increases in size or importance at a faster and faster rate, end quote. A snowball, as in a ball of snow, has been in English since at least the 1400s, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, and it has been used in figurative sense since at least the 1600s. Here is an early example found in John Webster's work, The White Devil, or The Tragedy of Paolo Giordano Orsini, Duke of Bracciano, with the life and death of Vittoria Corombona, the famous Venetian courtesan. And this is from 1612. Quote, Aye, your good heart gathers like a snowball, now your affection's cold. End quote.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's 1612. Now this isn't necessarily our concept. It might be, but we don't have enough context clues to say for sure that this 1612 example fits that thing. It certainly feels like it could, but I really need more context to understand if it's something that's building on each other or building on itself.
It could just be the, you're cold as ice kind of concept.
Yes, exactly. So, but that was where I saw it, and that one, that tends to lean towards our phrase, but have no fear, the early 1600s still does have some other examples. So our usage appears to come from the concept of rolling a ball of snow down a hill and how it gets bigger and bigger as it accumulates more snow. I don't know if you've ever been, listener, in a place where there was enough snow to do this, but if you just make one little snowball, like pack it tight, and then start rolling it, and you just keep rolling it, and it's just going to pick up the snow as it goes, and that's how you make snowmen or snowpersons, maybe. You just roll them up and just keep rolling, and then you have a ball, and then the bigger ball is on the bottom, and you make a smaller one to go on top, and a smaller one still that goes on top of that, and then you stick a carrot and some charcoal or something, and it's for its face, and then boom, you have Frosty, right? You got to put his top hat on him, and then he comes to life.
Then he comes to life.
Right. That's probably trademarked, actually.
The top, yeah, I don't think we can go with that.
Let's not go any further down that particular topic.
So this happens with other things too, like if you're making anything from a dough base, like baked goods, then the dough will stick to itself. So if you were to start to roll some dough across a layer of dough, then you could end up with a huge, just a ball of dough, and it wouldn't, just keep collecting more of it.
I see. Easy as pie, right?
Yeah, easy as pie.
All right. Okay, well, this first example that I'm going to use here is from 1622, and it is from a work by Francis Bacon titled The History of the Reign of King Henry VII. I was able to borrow it for free on the Internet Archive, which is possibly one of the most important websites on the Internet. Here's the paragraph. Quote, "The rebels took their way towards York without spoiling the country or any act of hostility, to better put themselves into favor of the people and to personate their king. But their snowball did not gather as it went, for the people came not into them, neither did any rise or declare themselves in any other parts of the kingdom for them." End quote.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an interesting take on it. Their snowball didn't gather. In this case, it's the negative, but it's clearly using the illusion of the snowball gathering, and is just done metaphorically and isn't specified in any other way, which tells me this is definitely something that people would understand.
Right, yeah, people got what that meaning was, for sure.
Right. Yeah, so while we're seeing in the early 1600s here, it's very likely that this concept of people understanding that a snowball rolling down has probably existed far before this. All right, this next one is out of the Newcastle Courant of Northumberland, England, and it is dated 30 August 1729. Quote, "They write from Warsaw that the party of a certain prince of great alliance gathers like a snowball." End quote. So I like that one. That's a good example of our phrase. It's still being used in the late 1700s as well. So here's out of Juvenile Pieces, designed for the youth of both sexes, by John Evans. This is a second edition because I was unable to locate a digital copy of the first edition, and so the second edition is from 1794. Quote, "Be only cautious with whom you associate, and particularly what you communicate, for rapport, like a snowball, increases its bulk as it rolls along." End quote.
Okay, I think that's really interesting, especially those two quotes, like kind of comparing them to one another. So one's talking about the party of a certain prince, so it's like that entourage or group of people surrounding them like continues to increase, and then this next one's talking about your, what people know about you, your what's the word for that? Rapport. So I don't know. That's just really interesting to think about those two things there.
Yeah, I do find it to be. It's clearly both of those are what we're talking about when we talk about something snowballing now.
Right.
Okay, I found one that used snowballs to describe what sounds suspiciously like a multi-level marketing scheme. This is out of the Whitehall Review, 17 September 1892, and it was pulled from the Oxford English Dictionary's resources. Quote, "The system of snowballs is a multiplication at a very rapid rate, each giver being obliged to bind himself to find a certain number of others who will not only give, but bind themselves each to find an equal number of contributors on the same terms." End quote. Who knew? I don't know the history of multi-level marketing, but I didn't realize it was around in the 1800s.
I could see that though. I mean, if you think about it, there's some guy who comes into town and he's like, "Here, if you just get 3 people to sell this for you, all you have to do is give me some of the money." I mean, that's a great. I
Well, it
mean,
is, but like normally the snake oil salesman rolled into town and then made their money and went out of town because they were not going to be welcome back once everybody discovered, right? So
yeah.
the idea of sticking around long enough, that's just a little bit longer term. But hey, kudos to them if they can make it happen, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to yuck on their yums. All right, we'll move forward a little bit. Here's one out of the Automotive News, which is Detroit, Michigan, USA, dated 17 April 1944. This is the opening line from a headline by Bethune Jones. Quote, snowballing trend seen in municipal taxes. Evidences of a snowballing trend throughout the country toward new municipal revenue sources and greater municipal sharing in the receipts from state-collected taxes are seen by observers in recent developments. End quote. So that even there, we're complaining about taxes going up.
I mean, we never stop as long as taxes have existed.
Right. Well, it is 200 years before this, Benjamin Franklin was commenting on the only securities in life are death and taxes. Right.
Yep.
This next one is out of the Evening Star, Washington, D.C. This is 27 October 1957, and it is in an article by Lester David. Quote, how would you like to be able to settle disagreements? Anything from mother-in-law troubles to budget arguments in jig time? Try a dramatic and imaginative technique which is snowballing in popularity among the U.S. businesses and industrial firms. The method is called role-playing. End quote.
Huh.
Okay, what the actual heck, America?
What?
Are we saying that it was 1957 before we as a people were like, what if I put myself in their shoes to see how they feel?
Probably. I mean,
No, that's fair. I would be appalled, but in 1957, we hadn't even passed the Civil Rights Act yet. Like, that wasn't until 1963. So we weren't exactly, and I would say now even, we're not exactly practicing equity in all of our laws in the United States. So that, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but it is still a bit jarring to see this touted as such a dramatic and imaginative technique in what I feel like wasn't that long ago. I mean, my dad was born before 1957, not by much, but he was alive in 1957. But I just, so it seems too close to me to be, for that such a wild thing that's
for that
like
to be treated like some sort of epiphany or like whatever.
Yeah. Well, hey, have you ever considered trying to imagine what they feel?
Like, no, wait, what?
No, apparently not.
I'm sorry.
Apparently not. No one had, apparently.
Jeez.
Wow. Okay, well, this is a good time to shift to our more modern uses since apparently 1957 was still barbarism in the United States. Well, okay, actually, you know what? I don't want to go into the break on a bummer. So let me jump back just a smidge to mention a story that was written by Catherine McLean and first published in the September 1952 issue of Galaxy Science Fiction. It's called The Snowball Effect. Now, she is a great example of a woman breaking barriers, as she is one of a few high-profile women working in writing at the time. Here is a quick note about her from the website youngpeoplereadoldsff.com. I imagine that is science fiction and fantasy, but I couldn't ever find on their website where they were clear about what SFF meant.
Right.
Okay, so this is what they mentioned about her. Quote, although she won a Nebula Award for The Missing Man, Catherine McLean is hardly a household name these days. Her most productive period ran from the 1950s to the 1970s. That nebula was won in 1971, with honors such as being a professional guest of honor at the very first WisCon in 1977 are almost all of similar vintage. She was admired for her ability to combine character with plot, character being an element of fiction many of her contemporaries seemed willing to do without. End quote.
Huh.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. I mean, she she lived for a long time. She passed away in the I think 2009 or 2010 in that area. So she still had the opportunity to be out and around. But yeah, she was writing. She was writing science fiction in a way that included it not where it was just about the science fiction part, the science fantasy part, but where the people were just in a science fiction world, you know,
Right,
in an
yeah.
area that which clearly some of the contemporaries were far more focused on the technology or the wildness of the world building and less about character development and such.
Right, yeah, yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, so okay, I feel a little better. We've talked about a positive note that was happening during that time frame. Okay, so now we're going to go give some thanks to those who make this show possible.
This episode is sponsored by our amazing patrons on Patreon. And the cool thing about Patreon is it is 100% free to join the community. We have new things every weekday on the feeds, including a conversation about what everyone is reading, early access to the show, patrons-only polls, and our behind-the-scenes video, which always includes a little about our week before the show and a cool feature after the show.
We've got some other pretty cool stuff too, like original digital artwork once a month made by Shauna, and awesome name recognition like Pat Rowe gets every episode. And our top spot is currently occupied by the amazing Mary Halsig Lopez. You can join the Bunny Trails community for free at Bunny Trails Pod on Patreon.
That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
All right. Well, the snowball effect is used in psychology and has several applications. Here are two from simplypsychology.org, one example from social media, and one from classroom learning. Quote, creating content on blogs and social media has become a very competitive market. Most creators and blog writers may make hundreds of informative or entertaining posts before they see any appreciable traffic. Perseverance and consistency are often key to obtaining more traffic on blogs and social media. Once they start to attract more traffic, they become increasingly more well-known. In learning, the snowball effect can also be used in the classroom, starting with the teacher or student proposing an idea. The student can then work with the other students to develop collective thoughts and snowball a small idea until it becomes a fully developed idea. End quote. The website has several other applications, both positive and negative, that we will explore in the behind-the-scenes video, which can be found at patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
I like the examples they give, though, there that kind of applies it in different ways. And I think those are things that people do without realizing it and not considering that it's that building effect that's happening in those types of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we also see this phrase in use with respect to airlines. Here is an August 9th, 2023 news headline from Fox 5 New York, a television station covering New York City in New York, America. Quote, airline ground stops snowball effect. If it feels like your summer air travel has been interrupted more than in previous years, well, you're right. But as Fox 5 NY's Chris Welch discovered, it's not just the climate to blame for these rise in ground stops, end quote. Chris goes on to talk to several experts about why this is happening more and more. If you travel by airline for work or have an upcoming flight, this is good background information to have. And it's not just the United States aviation that uses that term of snowballing. Here's an example from the Human Environment and Transportation Inspectorate out of the Netherlands. Quote, snowballing is a term associated to pushing on the consequences of a flight delay to flights operated at a later time, end quote. So it is actually common to several places, even somewhere English isn't the first language.
Okay.
One more aviation tip is to book the earliest flight in the day. Here is NerdWallet to tell us why. Quote, the second most common cause of delays is that the aircraft arrived late from its previous destination. It is not uncommon for the aircraft flying to an evening flight to have already made a couple of trips earlier in the day. If one of the earlier flights was delayed, there'd likely be a snowball effect. For example, the aircraft's first flight of the day may have been fine, but if the second flight had maintenance problems and arrived late, then the third flight would probably run behind schedule, which could in turn affect any subsequent flights. You can try to avoid the snowball effect by booking the day's first flight, end quote. Which
Yeah,
actually is really good advice.
yeah, that's great advice, and that's definitely been my experience. That the only times that I've had a flight be delayed or even canceled, that was due to a scheduling, like there was just another kind of issue like that. It wasn't the plane itself, you know. It's been an evening or, you know, not later in the day. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is just talking about delays, not cancellations. So the number one cause for delay is weather, of course. But the number two is an earlier flight being delayed, which just caused that snowball effect. And we definitely see that. I try oftentimes to catch the first flight because I live in a place where there are only a few places I can fly to directly. And most places I will need to have two flights. And since I can't always book a direct flight, I try and book the first flight of the day so that then I'm catching maybe the second or third flight for another plane and not the fourth or fifth, running me into the end of the day where maybe I can't get to my destination that day.
Right.
Since I have responsibilities to the next day to be there already.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, like just generally flying, I'd rather be on the earlier flight because then you're getting up early, but you can get to wherever hotel and settle in a little. But trying to spend all day flying and be delayed or anything like that, and then still get up the next morning early and you didn't even get, you know, it's like, I don't know, it just feels like it takes away more two nights of good sleep instead of one.
Right, yeah. Oh, I don't necessarily disagree. The snowball effect has been used in debt reduction strategies for at least the past 20 years. Here's a quick primer on it and the avalanche method from Wells Fargo. Quote, the snowball method, simply put, means paying off the smallest of all your loans as quickly as possible. Once that debt is paid, you take the money you were putting toward that payment and roll it to the next smallest debt owed. Ideally, this process would continue until all accounts are paid off. As you roll the money used from the smallest balance to the next on your list, the amount snowballs and gets larger and larger, and the rate of the debt that is reduced is accelerated. In contrast, the avalanche method focuses on paying the loan with the highest interest rate loans first. Similar to the snowball method, when the higher interest debt is paid off, you put that money toward the account with the next highest interest rate, and so on, until you are done. By focusing on the loans that are the most expensive to carry in the long run, you should pay less over time as the higher interest loans are addressed first. You may save some money with the avalanche method, but if the principal is large, the time it may take to pay off debt with the highest interest can be discouraging and make it difficult to stick to the plan. Paying off the small debts quickly can feel rewarding. If you prefer to see progress quickly and work your way up, then the snowball method may be a better fit for your debt management goals. End quote. Which is great, but it is important to remember that while these methods sound like solid advice, and they will work with people who can get to a certain baseline of financial security, they were written by people who make more speaking at a one-day financial workshop than most of us will make in 3 to 5 years. They are not using these strategies.
Right.
They don't have to. These debt reduction strategies tend to assume you are making enough money to pay all of your bills are current, and you have enough extra to pay down debt. If you don't have all three of these in place, then you are likely on the other side of the mountain where things snowball quickly away from your goals.
Right.
Here, some charge comes in that you weren't aware of or forgot about, and it overdraws your bank account. And then the bank charges you an overdraft fee, which adds more money to your deficit. And you have to take the money that you were going to use for gas to pay the overdraft fee just to get your account back to current so you don't keep getting more overdraft fees. And now you also don't have money for gas. And I'm speaking from experience on this one.
Brutal.
So, yeah. I love the ideas what these very well-to-do people say, well, why don't you just do this? And that'd get you right out of there in a heartbeat. But they never seem to understand that we don't live in a perfect world, and most people are not at the place where I'm making enough money to keep all my stuff current and also have extra at the end of it. Because if they did, they likely wouldn't be in the debt in the first place.
Right.
So,
because it's like most people are not just picking and choosing what order they're going to pay off their things in. It's not like they have debt for a reason.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
these advice are really good for middle-class people who, in their attempt to keep up with the Joneses, have been spending more than what they can afford. So that is who
Right.
these things are talking to. They are not talking to people who are struggling to make enough money to cover their bills in the first place. And while I'm all for paying down debt, I think the snowball and avalanche methods are both good methods to use for some. I also know many people are just not at a point where they can even think about debt reduction. They're just trying to put gas in the cars so they can go to work and make enough money to keep the electricity on. But I do want to move away from something that's personally frustrating to something that is a little more uplifting. The website snowball-effect.org is a place where people who want to make the world a better place by starting a business can get ideas and connect with people who are doing similar projects in other places. Their mission, according to their website, is, quote, to spread the most impactful initiatives across the world, to tackle society's challenges at scale. Let's stop reinventing the wheel. Impactful solutions already exist. It's high time to replicate them, end quote. You can search for projects that are making positive impacts in an area that matters to you, like providing self-sustained living solutions, or cleaning up rivers, or even making your city a welcoming space for everyone. There are projects that build coral frames to protect reefs, ones that open a generational cafe, and ones that improve the mental health of young people. You can select an example to learn more, including the creation date, where it's being used, the problem they target, the solution they have created, and the business model, or how they're paying for it. I'm not sure how the website itself pays for things, but they do have a workshop that they hold, and perhaps that's where their funding comes from. In any case, it seems like a worthwhile website that is doing good in the world. Even if you aren't looking at starting a business or a project, it was really cool for me to see all of the good things being done in the world. So you can check it out at snowball-effect.org. Perhaps the most important thing to remember about the snowball effect is that it works for both positive and negative things. There are countless self-help books touting the best ways to harness the positive effects of snowballing, but the negative effects can be very real. When this happens, it is worth it to take a step back, take a deep breath, and look at the situation with a clear head, which I guess is good advice in most situations. If only I could follow it. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. If you have any thoughts on the show or pop culture references we should have included, reach out to us on Patreon, patreon.com/bunnytrailspod, or comment on our website, bunnytrailspod.com.
It is poll time. Recently, we asked our patrons, crunchy or creamy? Whether it is peanut butter or some other version, we wanted to know how you like it. Coming in at 83% is creamy, the obviously correct answer.
All right, well, I'm a crunchy guy, and my go-to is Jif Natural Peanut Butter. I like it on pancakes, on a sandwich with grape jelly or jam, and by the spoonful with a banana and a glass of unsweetened almond milk. But if I'm going to bake it into a dessert, I love Reese's brand peanut butter. It's too sweet for regular usage, but for the occasional dessert, it is awesome.
My very favorite is fresh almond or cashew butter, which are a little bit on the crunchy side, but I don't know, maybe it's just the peanuts I don't like it as a crunchy peanut butter.
Interesting. Well, you were not alone. The vast majority of our patrons also preferred the creamy version of things, so I will just be the odd person out here.
Well, as a reminder, our silly polls mean absolutely nothing and are not scientifically valid, but patrons of all levels get to take part. Head over to patreon.com/bunnytrailspod to take this week's poll. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week. Until then, remember,
Words belong to their users.